Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. This is Bunch of Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are listening to The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. Time to join the conversation.
And good evening, everybody. It is Friday, February 8th, 2019, and it is time for The Right of the People. Glad to see that some fine folks have decided to join us this evening. Right now, we have like a whole 2 people watching, so that's awesome. That'd be the Tactical Pickle and Mohawk Boy, otherwise known as Calaveras 32 Special and Midnight Range TM. I'm sure other people will trickle in now that I've started broadcasting. Who knows with YouTube's notification system, or really any more lack thereof. But we'll see. Anyhow, here on the panel with us tonight, we got Squibload. How are you, sir?
I'm in a bad mood, but it's not what people might think. Let's just say my night's not going well. I'll try not to let it reflect on my wonderful commentary as a honored panel member. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, no problem, man. Believe me, we all have those days. Gee, well, you know what? I am not going to bother over much with trying to waste some time letting people show up. You know, they know what time it is. So...
yeah, it's time to lock the doors and change the trash, right?
That's right. It's time to lock the doors and take out the trash for Squib.
Here, you listen to this. Yep, they're locked.
Well, that's a good thing. No Terminators being killed in the background either, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'll try to do my best to stay off the shop floor.
Oh, dude, do what you got to do. You're at work. Real life comes first. Kingpin dropping by. How you doing, sir? Well, you're just going from show to show to show tonight, ain't you?
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Every once in a while, Night Strike invites me on the Friday Night Strike, so figured I'd pop in and say hi to him.
Cool, cool. How was it over there? I didn't get a chance to really watch. Just kind of popped in for a minute.
And we were just kind of just conversating. There really wasn't nothing to talk about. Right now, Travis and Rich are over there talking about their video game night that they do.
Sweet. Out in the chat, Ozzy Osbourne dropped in, as did Travis T and Patrick and Zora117. Ryan hopped in. Don't know if I recognize that username. If you're new, hey, welcome. Hope you stick around, listen to the show, and enjoy what you hear. If you don't know, we talk about the Second Amendment news and politics, and I generally present an article that I ran across this week, and we discuss it amongst the panel. You guys in the chat are absolutely welcome to chime in and throw your 2 cents in there. I try to do everything I can to read the chat. If not, the panel members do if they can too. So, you know, we try to have a conversation about the Second Amendment goings-on of this week. Speaking of which, for those of you who don't know, House Democrats held a hearing on gun control this week. A lot of different people testified. This is in their efforts to push universal background checks, which, you know, most of us understand are nothing more than a first step to further gun control, despite the fact that many on their side deny it. You know what? I forgot to go over to gun channels. Let me hop on gun channels and see if there's anybody over there that I need to say hello to. Speaking of gun channels, if you are not a member of gun channels, you should be. Gunchannels.com. It is the water cooler of the internet Second Amendment community. You can always find someone to talk with and something to talk about Second Amendment related 24/7, 365. over there, and it is absolutely free. You do not have to be a content creator. You can just be a regular old Joe, but there's something for you to do over there. So go ahead and go check it out. And no, even though that sounded like a commercial, they aren't paying me a dime. I just think that G-Webs has put together a great community over there. And we are simulcast live over there as well. And the chat seems to show up faster and run better over there than it does over here on the YouTubes. So check it out. Anyhow, as far as the Democrats' gun control hearings, as I was saying, those of us who are in the know that it's nothing more, that their universal background checks they're pushing are nothing more than a first step. And one of them actually admitted it as well. This is a piece from Breitbart. Gabby Gifford's associate, universal background checks, just the first step. During Judiciary Committee hearings for universal background checks, Gabby Gifford's associate, Robin Thomas, made clear the expanded checks are only the first step. Thomas is the executive director of the Giffords Law Center. She praised the introduction of universal background checks via H.R. 8 and stressed that there are other steps the Democratic Party can take on gun control after the checks are in place. A post shared by the NRA on February 6, 2019 said, "Today, Robin Thomas, executive director of Giffords Courage Law Center, confirmed what we already know. The anti-gun extremist agenda is to erode the Second Amendment a little by little. So-called universal background checks, H.R. 8, is just the first step." On January 13, 2019, Breitbart News reported that universal background checks are unenforceable without a gun registry. The government cannot be sure that guns are not changing hands unless it knows where every gun and every gun owner is at all times. The pattern is played out clearly in California, which adopted universal background checks in the early 1990s. They now have firearm registration, firearm confiscation laws, a 10-day waiting period on gun purchases, a requirement to acquire a gun safety certificate from the state before buying a gun, an assault weapons ban, a good cause requirement for concealed carry permit issuance, a ban on campus carry, and controls on the purchase of ammunition, among other things. While universal background checks open the floodgates to more gun control, they would not have prevented a single mass shooting in the U.S. during the 21st century. This is because nearly every mass shooter in the last 2 decades acquired his guns via a background check. The exceptions are those who stole their guns. As you can imagine, the Democrats, because yes, that's who is spearheading this universal background check H.R. 8 bill. Sorry to tell you. As you can guess, they trotted out a lot of anti-gun people to speak at these hearings. This is the last paragraph of another article I'm going to read. Some of the others who testified at the hearing include Joseph V. Saccharin, Associate Chief of the Division of Acute Care Surgery and Director of Emergency General Surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital, Baltimore, Maryland. Chief Art Acevedo, Chief of Police of the Houston Police Department, Houston, Texas. You know, that guy who was just calling for more gun control. Joyce Lee Malcolm, Professor of Law at the Antonin Scalia Law School, Arlington, Virginia, and Robin Thomas, Executive Director of the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, San Francisco, California. But there was actually someone there who, at least one person who testified from the pro-gun perspective, which I find really strange, but very refreshing. Excuse me, please. I had to take a little drink of my iced tea. Go ahead.
It's almost a waste of time to say it because it gets said so many times, but we got to keep saying it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they keep coming up with these statistics about, 2% of the population was killed on Friday by a 9mm. And, 18% of the population was killed on leap year 25 years ago when, but they never want to talk about how ineffective their assault weapons ban was, how ineffective the red flag laws are, how ineffective and I know there's statistics out there, I just don't know what they are, on how many of these shootings happen in gun-free zones. You know, it's so, and I get it. You know, that's the
Almost
point.
all of them.
They're not gonna tell us all that because it's counterproductive to what they're trying to do. But that the stupidity of anybody who has access to the internet, a book, or can talk and speak and communicate with anyone else to not realize just how asinine all these rules and regulations and bills are and how worthless they are. But feelings mean a lot. Feelings do a lot of things. Feelings get laws passed.
Travis T said he watched the entire 5-hour hearing. Man, good for you, sir, taking one for the team like that. He said there were a few pro-gun witnesses. Well, let's go ahead and talk about one of them. This is a piece from February 7th by Penny Starr in Breitbart. It says House Democrats are wasting no time in the new Congress, scheduling hearings that address their priorities, including a hearing on Wednesday on gun violence, as part of an effort to pass legislation to require universal background checks for firearm purchases. Savannah Lindquist was one of the witnesses asked to testify, and she was in the minority of speakers in asserting that gun control could leave crime victims helpless, just as she was when she was raped in a gun-free zone campus in Virginia. The witness seated next to Lindquist at the hearing, Alea Eastman, a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that was the site of the mass shooting last year, got a standing ovation for calling for strict gun control laws. Lindquist, 24, shared that she believes gun control laws may not only benefit criminals, but fail to stop mass shootings or save lives. I was living my dream, Lindquist, 24, said. Boy, I'm surprised the editor let that go. They just said Lindquist, 24 in the previous paragraph. Sorry, that's the English geek in me coming out. Anyhow, I was living my dream, Lindquist said. I had just begun my senior year of college. I was at my dream school with my dream major. I loved my job and was just months away from graduating college. I was so excited, especially as a first-generation college student, she said. But the dream quickly changed to a nightmare, as she was raped and left shattered. She dropped out of school and returned to her parents' home. Still, Lindquist said in her moving testimony that she was not testifying for pity, but for common sense legislation. I am a gun owner, and I was one at the time, Lindquist said, adding that shooting is a family tradition and that she has handled firearms since she was 10 years old. Yes, I could have broken the law and brought my firearm to college, she said. I obeyed the law as a responsible gun owner, and it ends up in me being raped. I'm just one of countless examples of gun control benefiting assailants and making victims like myself sitting ducks. To be clear, I don't want your sympathy, she said. What I do want, however, is for you to at least consider stories like mine when you decide to advocate for laws that create additional physical and financial barriers to the right of self-defense. Lindquist said that since 1950, 97.8% of mass shootings have occurred in the same kind of gun-free zones like the one at her former college. She also said that the Democrats' proposed legislation would place more restrictions and costs for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves, especially low-income Americans. I want to show you that there are real people with real stories who are being allowed to legally have the firearm could have saved them. Gun owners are a diverse group. No, we are not all Republicans, and no, we're not all in the NRA. I am neither, said Lindquist, who is back in school and works as a development and communications coordinator for Ladies of Liberty Alliance. I am a college student willing to bare her soul into the work if it means people think twice before. I'm sure bare her soul to the world is what that meant to say. If it means people think twice before enacting laws that restrict the right to a reliable means of self-defense. Lindquist said the 9mm gun that she wears on her hip allows me to stand tall, stay strong, and confidently say, never again. The Associated Press reported, for too long, Republicans in Congress have offered moments of silence instead of action in the wake of gun tragedies. That era is over, Representative Art Nadler, now chairman of their committee, said in the hearing, the first focus on gun violence in 8 years. It's evident from the energy in the crowd in this room, as well as the millions of people across the country fighting for sensible gun safety laws, that the public is demanding national legislation, Nadler said. Yeah, right. Not anyone that I hear other than those put forth by the liberal socialist media. But there we go. You know, not everybody is that was there was testifying against gun rights. There were people there, apparently more than one, according to Travis. who were testifying in favor of gun rights. But we know how much weight that will hold when it comes time for the House to vote, don't we?
Well, this is just like the whole good cop, bad cop thing. What do you hear on the news? You only hear the stories about law enforcement that just blast people over nothing. You hear about law enforcement that, they're bad cops, they're breaking the law. You hear about law enforcement not giving people their, rights and due process and things like that. You're hearing all the stories about the ones that don't have good training, that aren't really cut out for the job, that made a mistake, that made poor judgment, or that are just plain bad people. And by the way, there are bad people in every career field. It's not just politicians and law enforcement. Okay, but that's the only thing you hear about on the news. You don't hear about the cop that jumped in the river and saved somebody from drowning. You don't hear about the cop that helped the single mom on the side of the road by changing out her tire because she didn't have AAA. You don't hear about the cop that, maybe was picking up their kid at school one day, and because they were there, the guy was going to shoot up the school when it got out, decided, maybe I'm going to turn around and leave. You don't hear about that stuff. Okay, so the firearms, the civilians that own firearms, the law-abiding citizens like us, they don't tell the stories about the family that goes to the shooting range together, about the person that was within their legal rights to defend themselves in a public place or in their home and did it, and it was a bad thing somebody had to get shot or killed, but it's a good thing that somebody it was the bad guy, not the good guy. You don't hear about teaching children responsibility by teaching them that this is a dangerous, deadly item, but it can save your life. It can be a tool to save your life, and it can be a tool for recreation as well. And then learning responsibility and learning how to value life over it. I mean, there's just so many positive things. So just like law enforcement gets vilified, gun owners get vilified. And I'm glad somebody went out there and showed that, hey, look, I followed your stupid law and it cost me. And it's unfortunate that it happened to her, and I'm not happy about that. I really wish she would have had, like you said, the means, method, and opportunity to defend herself. But you know what? Had she? She might be in jail right now, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't have the right. She should. She should have had the right. She should have had that gun on her. She should have been able. But had she might have been in jail right now for defending herself because of some stupid law, and it probably wouldn't even make the news that somebody was getting attacked, attempted rape on a college campus or something, and they were able to stop it because the media doesn't do that. They don't do that enough. Just like they don't tell about.
The headline would have read, "Women arrested for having gun on campus."
Right. And it wouldn't have said why and all that. Just like they don't talk about all the positive stories about when law enforcement goes above and beyond for public safety. So it really sucks that the media is the tool that the politicians are using to divide us and to more or less be able to control the way people vote, the way people think, what people do, how they feel. It's so irritating. And to go back to what you were talking about earlier, Rupan and I were talking today via text, and I was telling him, look, man, here's the thing. They can't actually go door to door to every single building and find every single gun inside of every single structure. There just aren't enough people to do it. There just isn't the manpower, not to mention, if you see them on one end of town heading this way, all you gotta do is grab your stuff and move it, and when they leave, you bring your stuff back. That's what we did when the redcoats would come into town. They'd stall them, and they'd move everything out into the country, and then after they left the town, they'd bring all the guns back into the town, okay? But if they pass universal background checks coast to coast, if they pass registration coast to coast, whether it be state by state by state, or whether they do it on a federal level, once they have that list, now you're accountable for that firearm. So when they do come knocking on the door, if you can't present every gun that is on that list, you're screwed. You can't take it to your cabin up north. You can't hide one at work. You can't bury it in the backyard. You can't do anything to say, all right, they got 2 or 3 of them, but they didn't get the other 25 or whatever it is. And that is what we need to focus our energy on the most, is getting rid of any registrations, getting rid of universal background checks and fighting it at every corner. After that, then we can go after getting standard capacity magazines back, or concealed carry permitted in a state, or whatever. There's certain levels of that. All these people are going, we need to save bump stocks in the NFA. That's all good and fine, but that's like at the bottom of the list, people. You got to think about what can they do? What is the most effective thing that the politicians can do to all of us to be able to confiscate our stuff the easiest way, the easiest possible way. They just don't have enough SWAT and National Guard to kick in every door at the same time. They just can't. But if they got a registration and you can't sell your private property to another owner without having to do a background check where, once again, there's another registration, you know, if that's in place everywhere, we're screwed. At that point, the next step will be to come for everything. And then nobody will be able to protect themselves. Everybody will be a victim like this young lady.
Well, and I agree. I think going back to the topic of the media, I believe Mark Walters when he says that the greatest power the media has isn't, and the greatest threat they pose isn't in what they choose to report, it's what they choose not to report. You know, for instance, last week, in one of the self-defense, I think it was last week, either last week or the week before, was that fellow down in Texas that shot at 5 home invaders, killed 2 or 3 of them, and the rest fled. What the media absolutely didn't tell you, and I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked to see what kind of weapon was used, what kind of weapon he used to defend himself, and you can't find it anywhere. I had to get the information from Armed American Radio's broadcast that the guy used an AK-47 to defend himself. You know, one of those evil black semi-automatic assault rifles that are weapons of war and have no place on them in American homes, with a evil high-capacity quote-unquote magazine, was used to defend himself against multiple assailants. You know, exactly what they're designed for. So that's how the media shapes the narrative in this country. That's how the media shapes opinion in this country. That's how the media shapes the culture in this country, by choosing what to report, but even more importantly, what not to report. Before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to Jason Stewart out there, which, by the way, if you notice now, when you post something in the chat, Jason, that you have a blue wrench, that's because you are my newest, actually my first Best Buddy level contributor on Patreon. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the support that all of you have given me, but you know, people like you that enjoy my content that much, that really floors me and means a lot to me. So thank you very much, sir. Andrew Faulkner says the AK part was mentioned on the local news. Yeah, and that's it. It was mentioned in an interview on the local news in a video piece, but I've in absolutely 0 articles that have any transcription or anything written down, not mentioned at all. You have to really look at it. Yeah. I actually did a video on that, Rich. The Oklahoma, the Broken Arrow shooting, where the guy defended his family against multiple home invaders with an AR-15, and you know, the family of the scumbags was saying that it wasn't fair that he used an AR. You know what? Yeah, I think it was the guy's grandpa. So yeah, that dude can go pound sand, dude. That's exactly what an AR-15 is used for. It's exactly what an AK-47 is used for. You know, it's to defend yourself in situations where you might not otherwise be able to.
You know what kind of law they need to pass? They need to pass a law that doesn't say that the criminal's right is greater than the victim's. And they need to have a law that says as soon as you violate my rights, as soon as you violate my right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all of your rights are gone. So if you break into somebody's house, there's no, oh, well, you could have let him go, or you could have cowered in the closet, or you could have this, no. He broke into my house. End of story. Okay. When somebody wants to pick a fight with you out at, say, like a sporting event because they're drunk or something, all right, you try to walk away. But if they keep chasing you down and chasing you down, now they're in your space. Now they're taking your ability to enjoy the away. So if you knock their teeth out, hey, you should be, sorry that we weren't there to get between you and him, sir. Have a nice day. And you just walk away with a sore knuckle because this guy was taking away your rights. But they don't look at that. What they do is they look at the aggressors, they look at the criminals, they look at the people who make bad choices in life as the victims.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got it all wrong, Squibby. The reason that the guy wants to fight you at the baseball game is because of your toxic masculinity. The reason that the people rob your house at night and steal your property is because of your wealth distribution inequality. So of course, why wouldn't they rob you if you're toxic masculinity and you've got what I want, so I should be able to take it from you because it's not fair that I don't have what you have.
They're not criminal scumbags, man. They're Robin Hoods. They're taking from the rich, giving to the poor.
Yeah, somebody tried to use that excuse on me a couple of weeks ago. Whenever we were talking about government programs, and he was like, "Well, what about Robin Hood?" And I said, "Well, first of all, Robin Hood is fake. Second of all, Robin Hood had a sheriff who usurped the throne and was torturing and destroying the community. So that's why he stood up. It's not like Robin Hood lived in a good suburban neighborhood with nice schools and a mall down the street and just started robbing rich people and giving it to the homeless."
Absolutely right. Speaking of taking from one and giving to the others, Connecticut Democrat introduces 50% tax on ammunition. It's a piece by AWR Hawkins from Breitbart from February 5th. Connecticut State Representative Jillian Gilchrist, Democrat 13th, is pushing a 50% tax on ammunition purchases in her state. Gilchrist is willing to exempt police and military personnel from the impost, but homeowners worried about defending their lives and those of their families get no such break. In fact, Gilchrist questions how much ammunition a homeowner needs to carry out a viable defense. She tweeted, "I'm hearing pushback about the need to protect one's home. How much ammunition does someone really need to do that?" Gilchrist equated taxes on ammunition with taxes on cigarettes, claiming both are examples of, quote, a public health measure. Gilchrist did not mention that a tax on ammunition makes self-defense cost prohibitive for poorer Americans. She readily admits that under the plan, a $10 box of ammunition would cost $15, but she does not connect the dots to understand that most ammo is far higher than $10 to begin with. So the price increase resulting from her proposed tax would, in many cases, be much greater than $5. Well, if you think her idiocy stops there, you're wrong, because from another piece right in the same place, Connecticut State Rep Jillian Gilchrist doubled down on her ammunition tax proposal by claiming that the 50% tax is worth it if it can, quote, prevent just one death. Private gun ownership and concealed carry combine to prevent hundreds of thousands of deaths each year, but Gilchrist did not say anything about the value of making sure more law-abiding citizens are armed. On Tuesday morning, they reported about her tax. Gilchrist responded to the NRA's tweet. Let's see. The NRA pointed out that Gilchrist's ammo tax will make it harder to afford the practice ammo necessary to become proficient with one's firearms. Gilchrist introduced, this is from the NRA, Gilchrist introduced HB 5700, which would impose a 50% tax increase on ammunition. This dreadful legislation punishes law-abiding citizens and makes it harder to learn how to safely use firearms. Gilchrist responded to the NRA by tweeting, "I'm interested in preventing gun violence. If increasing the tax on ammunition can prevent just one death, it's worth it." Let's not talk about the... Excuse me, I'm allergic to bullshit. Let's not talk about the hundreds of thousands to millions, depending upon who you talk to, of defensive gun uses every year that prevent death. But if only one can be if only one can be prevented by, doing what Democrats do best, raise taxes for social engineering, then it's worth it. Yeah, right.
I've got the answer for how much ammo do you need.
As much as it takes.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly the answer. How much do you need? How many guns do you need? How much ammo do you need? I don't know. I don't know. That's why I've got a lot. And what I sure don't want to do is find out that I don't have enough the hard way. That's what I don't want to let happen. If I got Barney Fife and 1 round in my pocket and 15 guys come up the street, that's not enough ammo.
I've never heard of anyone losing a gunfight because they had too much ammo on them.
Nope.
But I'm absolutely positive there have been people who've lost that fight because they ran out.
Well, and you bring it up all the time, and it's really, everybody should pay attention. Everybody should watch this show because you say a lot of really good stuff, and you talk about the incrementalism.
Yep.
And this is a part of incrementalism. It's making it just like they've been trying to do with cigarettes for the past 20 years. Make them so expensive that people can't afford it. It's still legal, but you just can't afford to do it. Squib talks about it all the time with the machine guns. Machine guns are legal. If you got $10,000 to go drop on a machine gun, go for it. But you don't. That's why you don't have a machine gun. You don't have 5,000 rounds of ammunition because Dick's Sporting Good made it so expensive that you can't afford it anymore because of the laws, or wherever. Don't shop at Dick's, but wherever you buy ammo at.
Hi, Negan. Bye, Negan. I'm not going to have crap like that on my show. Listen, if you want to come in and have an honest discussion, as I did with you before the first time you showed up trolling, I don't have a problem with that. I'll sit down and I'll have a conversation with you. But if you want to talk crap like that, I'll just ban you. Period. Permanent. Goodbye. That's
that kid that hates me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just came in and said hi. I said hi to him. He says Republicans need to be executed. I say bye. Adios. See ya.
Yeah.
You know what? We say that we don't like the liberal agenda, that we don't like socialism, that the Democrats are anti-gun. No. We don't call for the death or execution of it. I got family members that are hardcore Democrats. Sometimes Thanksgiving dinner is uncomfortable.
This is a teenage kid, but still.
Yeah. I'm not calling for, believe me, these people in Congress, if somebody wiped them out, and then the next ones come in line, and they had the same voting record, and they got wiped out, and the next one, and by the third or fourth one, they go, maybe they're trying to tell us something. Okay? But that's no way to solve, this is America. That's not how you solve that problem with your foreign enemies, but at home, no. You solve your problems by dealing with it civilly and legally. Violence is the absolute last resort. That's why it drives me nuts. All these people in our community are calling for revolution and civil war. We are so far from that.
Absolutely.
Way far away from that. So it's the same difference as calling for the death of these politicians. Yes, they're misguided, and yes, they're corrupt, and yes, they're all corrupt on all sides. Even the independents are. Okay? But I'm not calling for anybody to die unless it's an enemy of our country, like some terrorist or something. Anyhow, yeah, he's young. He doesn't understand.
Hopefully one day he will. But in the meantime, I'm not going to have people calling for the death of somebody else on my show. I'm not going to do it.
That doesn't win any arguments anywhere. And we've had this discussion on this chat and on other chats. When you start talking about, I'm going to go kill somebody, well, you're going to start walking by yourself. If me and you are standing there together and you're like, I'm had enough, I'm going to go kill somebody. Well, when you're walking left, I'm walking right. That's the quickest way to lose people who support you or will support your ideas, is starting to talk insanity like that. Not to mention the fact that budget's going to be the one that gets in trouble over that. Not whatever jerk is out there typing that stuff.
And you also have to think, now, for some of the smaller channels, we don't have hardly any viewers, so maybe it doesn't make a difference. For some of these bigger channels, or somebody who's small who gets invited onto a panel on a bigger channel, when you're reaching thousands or tens of thousands of people, there's going to be somebody, statistically, that is there, sitting there, waiting, listening on every single word, hanging on every single word. And when you say, you need to get your AK and march down to the state capitol and just start lynching these people, wiping them out and blah, 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 go to their homes and do this and do that and start the revolution. Somebody needs to be brave enough to take one for the team and start the revolution. Dude, there will be somebody who does it one day. And the blood of the people that they go and commit crimes against is on your hands because you're out there inciting this crap. And you can go, all I did was just suggest it. No, I do not support the people in our community, despite the fact that some of them I know, some of them I subscribe to, and some of them have really, really good things to say so often. When they start going off on that end, now when they want to talk about hypotheticals, I think they need to say, hypothetically, let's say there was a revolution. How would it start? Or what would happen? Okay, that's a hypothetical. That's an intellectual discussion, controversial or not. But when you're out there actually, banging your fist on the desk and you're saying, somebody's got to take one for the team. Oh, my goodness, that drives me up a wall.
Yeah, you're not taking one for the team by advocating criminal activity. You're not. Particularly not to the point where you're talking about murdering people just because they have different political opinions from you. For instance, getting back to the topic of this 50% ammunition tax, the other night on, I'm not sure whose show I was in briefly when they were talking about this, but I made the statement that if they were to ever do something like this in Ohio, I would absolutely break that law. I would go to a neighboring state. I would buy pallets of ammunition, come back and sell it, make a little bit of money off it to recoup my expenses, but still under what they're charging with the taxes. Now, I would never advocate that someone else do something like that, but I can understand why someone would do something like that, because I sure as hell will. I will break that law 6 ways from Sunday every opportunity I get because I think it's tyranny. But I would never advocate somebody to go down to the state house and start ripping off magazines full of ammo just to make a point,
And here's the thing. If Connecticut passes this, first off, okay, for me it's kind of hard to fathom this because I don't live in Connecticut where they pass all this. Apparently, there's only 2 people in Connecticut that give 2 shits about guns, and that's Vanessa Kitty and Cycle Camp. Everybody else apparently doesn't give 2 shits about guns, I guess. That's the first thing. I mean, it is kind of a small state, so I don't know how, do the math and the ratio there. And I feel for you guys, you got to live there and put up with this bullcrap. So maybe part of me is like, that just won't fly, but they're trying to do it here in Michigan in one county, and they're letting the city control the decision of the county. Well, first off, that violates state preemption, so they might not get it through. But then again, the governor in Pennsylvania is allowing the mayor of Pittsburgh to violate state preemption, not do anything, and we just got an anti-gun governor and an anti-gun attorney general here in Michigan. So they might break the law and allow Wayne County, Michigan, to put this background check and tax on ammunition. But here's the thing. That's only Wayne County. It's surrounded by like 4 or 5 other counties. It's nothing. I mean, it's a 20-minute drive to cross the county line and go to Joe Blow gun store, buy your ammo, and come back across the county line. And what are they going to do? Set up checkpoints at every road? No, they won't. So it's the same thing in Connecticut, or if it were to happen in Ohio statewide or Michigan statewide. We used to come down to your state budget to buy fireworks.
Yep.
We used to come down there and buy fireworks because they banned them in Michigan. People would bring them across the border, shoot them off at 4th of July. You'd hear about, some moron, set fire to his backyard, or how many more people showed up in the emergency room on that night with burnt hands and stuff. But for the most part, there weren't enough cops to enforce it. No matter how many phone calls they got, no matter how many patrols they put out, they couldn't enforce people shooting off firecrackers. Well, when the economy was bad, the governor said, we're losing all this money to Ohio and Indiana, and people are doing this anyhow, and we can't stop it. Why don't we just legalize fireworks in Michigan and get the tax benefit from it? And since then, they've legalized it, and guess what? Just as many people go to the emergency room on that night, just as many backyards catch fire, and blah, 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 blah. But now the cops aren't running around trying to arrest people, and we aren't losing the tax revenue to our neighboring state. I think if Wayne County enacts this, or Connecticut enacts this, and they see how much taxes they're losing, and people are still bringing ammo in, they're going to realize that they proverbially shot themselves in the foot.
Yep. Vanessa Kitty says we have to get an ammo permit to buy ammo. Why do you think that law was made? Oh, I'll tell you
you're telling me
why that law was made. It goes back to what I always say. Gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control. It's just simply to put an obstacle in the road of you exercising your Second Amendment rights, period. It's the same with this 50% tax increase they're proposing. It's the same way with having to get permits to buy a firearm, having to get permits to carry a firearm, having to get a permit for any damn thing. It's nothing more than a means by which they discourage you from exercising your right by placing yet another obstacle in your path, period.
Now, I will say this. They might have reciprocity with those neighboring states, where those neighboring states will ask you to show ID to buy ammunition because, say, your neighboring state is what, Massachusetts or whatever. Massachusetts might suspect that you're from Connecticut and you're crossing the border to buy this ammunition. Because I can tell you, I was at a gun store in Las Vegas, and they wanted to know if I was from California before they'd sell me a gun, because they can't sell a gun in Nevada and have it cross the border into California. Now, I'm sure if you went far enough into the country, you drove enough states over, they wouldn't be asking, unless they've got reciprocity with every. So I suppose there are ways they can make it where you can't drive out of the state or drive out of the county because you got to prove where. But then, budget, there'll be guys like you that will be doing that. You will legally be buying a pallet of ammo, and you'll be selling it somewhere. It'll happen. So these laws are BS.
I would drive to. I have family in Georgia. If I really, really wanted to, I could have them buy me a pallet of ammo. I'd go down and pick it up and bring it back. No one would know the wiser, and they'd do it in a heartbeat and laugh. So, go ahead and pass whatever laws you want. When it comes to things like that, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I really don't care. That's tyranny, and I won't stand for that. I won't do it. Someone up there, Garen Man, said he heard that a 50% tax was worded that it was a 50% tax on the box of ammo, that a $10 box of ammo was going to cost $15, then sales tax. Yes, that's it exactly. That's what the article I just quoted said. So it's crazy. If it were me, now I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling anybody in Connecticut what to do. If it were me and they passed it in Ohio, well, I'd ignore that in every chance I got. That's all I'm saying. Speaking of more idiotic laws wanting to be, more idiotic laws being proposed in other states. Red flag bill ready at state capitol, gun lobby opposed. This is by Brian Malahi from February 4, 2019 from KJZZ.com. Salt Lake City, Utah. A red flag plan could temporarily take guns away from dangerous people in Utah, but the gun lobby seems firmly against it, and a showdown may be coming soon at the state capitol. The Extreme Risk Protective Order bill was raised here in Utah last year after the deadly Parkland, Florida school shooting, but is recast now here as a suicide prevention measure. Before the Super Bowl, the Crossroads of the West Gun Show was going on at the Mountain America Expo in Sandy. There, concern was expressed by a spokesman who said the bill would weaken our Second Amendment rights. I'm a gun owner. I have a concealed carry permit, said Representative Steve Handy, Republican, Davis County. But why can't we have a conversation? So, folks, don't think just because they have an R behind their name that your gun rights are safe with them, because they're not. A red flag plan could temporarily take guns away from dangerous people in Utah, but the gun lobby seems firmly against it, and a showdown may be coming soon at the state capitol. I'm a gun owner. I have a concealed carry permit, said Representative Steve Handy, R. Davis County, but why can't we have the conversation? Handy is sponsoring HB 209, which would allow court to order a temporary seizure of firearms from a person who made a recent threat of violence or is deemed by a judge to be dangerous. Other factors, including a violent criminal conviction, would also be considered. I think it's common sense, said Handy. It has that school safety component. Would it reduce the number of suicides in Utah? 2 News inquired. We don't know. I can't look into a crystal ball and say that, Handy replied. But the data seems to indicate from other states that we've studied that it would. Handy has had meetings going back to nearly a year with Clark Aposhian. I think that's how you say it. So I apologize if I butchered that. Clark Aposhian, chair of the Utah Shooting Sports Council, trying to enlist his support for the plan, but Aposhian is still opposed. Why shouldn't guns be taken away from dangerous people? 2 News asked Aposhian. A red flag plan could temporarily take guns away from that's a capture from a photo, my bad. Why shouldn't guns be taken away from dangerous people? 2 News asked Aposhian. They are. They can be right now, he answered. We have existing law. Aposhian is backing Utah House resolution urging enforcement of statutes already on the books. Oh, wow. Holy cow. That's crazy. Saying HB 209 would trigger one-sided court cases against someone accused of being dangerous. He also stated his view the proposed legal standard for the judge to decide to remove guns is too low. I don't think it's going to pass, Aposhian said. Handy put the chance of the bill making it through the legislature at 50-50. The measure has not yet been assigned for a hearing, but it could happen this week. So, as I said, don't think that your rights are safe with your representative or your senator or any elected official just because they have an R behind their name. Because I keep saying, the Democrats this, the Democrats that, the Democrats, because by and large, gun control measures are the vast majority. All it takes is you to look at the federal record to bear this out. The vast majority of gun control measures have been introduced by Democrats. However, there absolutely are Republicans who are no friend to the Second Amendment as well. Look at the bump stock ban. Look at Marco Rubio wanting to introduce federal red flag legislation. Look at this jerk in Utah wanting to reduce red flag legislation there. We have to watch all of them. We have to be on all of them. We have to hold all of their feet to the metaphorical fire on this issue.
Look, if it's I've been screaming this for as long as I've been into politics, which is a good 20 years now. You can't trust the Republicans, plain and simple. You can trust the Democrats, because the Democrats, even though for the longest time they've snaked around and kind of used play talk to say they want to do this or do that, you know what you're going to get. Just like I was saying with Donald Trump, when people were asking me who I was going to vote for, Hillary Clinton or Trump, I said Trump. And they said, well, he's got no experience. I said, well, you know exactly what you're going to get when you get Hillary Clinton. You don't know what's going to happen if you get Donald Trump. Democrats, you know exactly what you're going to get when you vote for them, because they tell you they're going to take your car away. They're going to stop airplanes from flying. They're going to take your guns away. They're going to kill your baby after you deliver it. So they lay it right out there what you're going to get. They're not the dangerous ones because they tell you. Just like if you walk up into a yard and there's 2 dogs standing there and one's growling and snarling and spitting all over the place and the other one's wagging its tail. Well, you're going to think, well, the one that's snarling and growling is definitely going to bite me. The one that's, happy and joyful and wagging his tail probably won't bite me. So you reach over to pet it and it bites you and rips your arm off your body. That's what happens with a Republican. They smile in your face and say all these wonderful things around election time, and then as soon as you pull that lever and say, I'm voting for John Q. Republican, he screws you the first chance you get. And he, her, them, whatever, you can't trust any of them. None of them.
I think you may be very right. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure you are right.
I agree with David. I think that we need more than 2 parties. And I think at some point a 3rd and 4th party will come into play and they will be a viable option. I still don't think that a third party is in position right now to get elected on a large scale. Possibly a governor, maybe. But anything below governor, I say it's possible. We've got to get more of that happening, more independence at things, political positions below governor before you start going for the national thing. The problem is we've got people in our own circles, that people we associate with, that keep pushing for these independents. And what they do is they take the votes away from the Republicans, who, yes, do not always do what you want, or don't do everything you want, or are sometimes wolves in sheep clothing. But like David said, you know what you're going to get with the Democrats. So if you give your vote to the independent at a certain level, you only help the Democrats, and you know what you're going to get with them. I'd rather us have the option to go, dang, there's 3 people, and all of them have an equal chance of winning. But that's still not possible. So when we've got people on our side that are telling other people not to vote for the Republican, and definitely don't vote for the Democrat, and put all your votes on the independent, that isn't going to get anywhere. That doesn't help our side either.
And
It sucks that some of the people that the NRA tells us to vote for, or that we think will help us because they have an R next to their name, screw us over. It sucks. But like you said, you know exactly what you're going to get with the Democrats. So if you vote a certain way to help the Democrats, you're part of the problem. I'm not saying you have to vote Republican, and I don't think people should not go to vote. I think everybody should vote, no matter what. I think if you want to vote independent, do it for your smaller elections, and
do it in your local elections.
Do it in your local elections. Help build those parties. Let's get it so that in 10 or 20 years, there's 4 parties out there with an equal chance to be governor or AG or president. Let's do that. But just be careful about what you do, because you might think that you're helping. You might think that you're being progressive, but you're really not. You're not helping.
We got as close right now with Donald Trump to a third-party president as you're going to get.
Yeah.
All the Republicans hate him, and all the Democrats hate him. So there's your third-party president right there. And I get it. I'm not swinging from Donald Trump's coattails. You know, there's a lot of stuff he does that I don't approve of, but there's a lot of stuff he does that I do approve of. And I was glad that I voted for him, and I'll gladly vote for him again. But Squib was nailing it right on the head. You're joking. Absolutely out of your mind joking if you voted for any of the third-party candidates since Ross Perot.
Yep.
Because if you voted for Jill Stein, you screwed up. And I'm no authority on votes, and I'm not telling anybody what to do or anything. That this is my opinion, and it may or may not be the opinion of the host of the show and the rest of the panel. Gary Johnson is a joke. And I heard somebody, I'm not going to mention the show or the person, but somebody was pumping Gary Johnson the other day and running their mouths, sounding foolish about other stuff. If you voted for Gary Johnson, you need to have your head examined, because that guy as the president would have destroyed our country. All independents, and I already said all of them are Democrats. Don't think for a second that your third-party candidate is actually independent. That is a joke. Squib is totally right, and so is Budget. You vote for those small local elections, people you can actually go possibly talk to and hear in a small venue of your neighborhood or your community or wherever, your county, and hear what they had to say, and maybe even be able to ask them questions and vote those people in. But if you go for Miley Cyrus, who's going to run for the third-party candidate because you hate Donald Trump and you hate the Democrats, so I'm voting third-party, don't think that anything is going to change. I agree with Squib. Go vote. Absolutely go vote. Get
involved. It's like building a house. It's like building a house. What's the first thing you build in the house? It's the foundation. You don't put the roof on first. You put the foundation on first. You have to have a base on which to rest. Otherwise, everything else is going to fall. And it's the same thing when you're talking politics. You build that foundation. You vote in your local elections, your city, your town council, your school board, your freaking dog catcher, whatever local elected office that you can fill with those independent candidates, you fill. Then you go at the state level. And then you go for the national level. You don't try to go from the top down, you go from the bottom up. And that's how you build a larger base of support for those national elections.
Yeah, until people start doing it like that, these parties are just going to keep, treading water. And for those of you who are younger than me and don't remember because you were too busy trying to think of what we were doing back then, I guess going to the mall back then and watching 90210 or whatever the heck it was you were doing. I guess it would be, you would probably even be just watching G.I. Joe and Transformers and not paying attention. Okay, here's the deal. Even though Bush Sr. was not the best president, he wasn't the worst president. What I didn't like about him was the whole read my lips, no new taxes, and then he taxed the crap out of it. That pissed me off more than anything else. Some people are going to go, 922R, 922R. No, okay. You guys can nitpick over that crap just like you can nitpick over the Hughes Amendment and bump stocks. That's a whole other argument. Here's the thing. The reason he didn't get reelected was because of Ross Perot. Yep. So many conservatives put their votes towards Ross.
That wasn't jobs going to Mexico. That was votes going to Ross Perot.
They went to Ross Perot. Bush didn't get reelected. Clinton got elected. And what was the first thing he did when he got elected? The assault weapons ban.
I was going to say
some of you don't remember that because you were too busy playing with your Barbies and your G.I. Joes or something because you're too young and you don't remember. Okay, or whatever the hell it was, or you're really young. You're now finally old enough to vote, and you were I guess busy horsing around with your cell phone and your computer or whatever the heck kids do. You were watching Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, you were playing with your Yu-Gi-Oh cards and watching Pokemon and don't know what's going on with politics. So I am telling you, somebody who watched this happen. I was old enough to vote, and I remember, and I was mad as hell at Bush too. For raising taxes, because it was one thing, I do not like taxes. You guys know that. So
all right, let's get off the T word.
Yeah, let's get off the T word. But the thing is though, that's where an independent actually had a chance and it ruined it, and then we got the assault weapons ban because of it. So that's why I'm saying this sort of thing. And people they weren't cognizant, they weren't old enough to vote at the time. So they don't know, and they're out there telling people, hey, we got to get Gary Johnson in here. It's like, oh, facepalm. Oh.
Bill Clinton was a combination of two things. One, it was Ross Perot, and two, Bill Clinton was slick. He was slick, especially if you were younger. I was 18 at the time. That was my first presidential election that I voted in, and he just seduced me. And before I knew it,
he played that saxophone on national TV and. He was younger, and they were saying he was like Kennedy because he's younger. And, I was going, who the hell is this hick from Arkansas?
That's why I say, Ocasio-Cortez is a joke. And, she's an absolute moron. But she's a big, big player. And if you don't think that she's got power, then you haven't been paying attention.
She's not a moron. She's just crazy.
And she's got a lot of people who love her. The people who love her, and the people who hate her. But there's a whole mess load of people that absolutely adore her because she's cute, she's likable, whether you like it or not. The girl is likable, and she's young. She's fighting against the system. Sticking it in Nancy Pelosi's face every day, sticking it in Donald Trump's face every day. Don't dismiss her just because she's crazy.
Yeah. People voted for Obama because they wanted the first black president, the whole hope and change, the whole white guilt, all that. They didn't look at the fact that the man didn't have any experience or what he did have experience and how he voted and things like that, okay? They didn't look at that. Jimmy Carter. I know some of you are like, who the hell is Jimmy Carter? Jimmy Carter was a peanut farmer from Georgia, and he did have a political background. He was a war veteran and everything else. But they voted for him because they were sick of voting for the rank and file in politics. All these guys that have ran. Some of these people ran multiple times before they got elected as president. But Jimmy Carter didn't know what the hell he was doing. He weakened our country. He cost us a lot of money. He cost us a lot of strategic assets. He really screwed things up. Reagan had his hands full fixing all the defense issues that Carter screwed up. Oh my goodness. Carter he didn't help the economy. But people felt good because they're like, look, he's an honest peanut farmer from Georgia. Sometimes we want to get away from the career politics. We really do. But sometimes when we do that, we end up with Carter and Obama.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on. I'm out of time here tonight. I've got to get ready and go to work. So I'm going to move to the last segment. This is the one that Roll Call loves so much. This is the self-defense shout-outs. For those of you who are new to the show or who have not stuck around to the end yet, self-defense shout-outs are not where I'm reveling in the death or injury of the bad guy. It is where I am, in fact, reveling in the idea that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity with which to defend themselves from the bad guy. First up, from February 1st, 2019, by myfox8.com, Elizabeth City, North Carolina. A registered sex offender was shot and injured after breaking into a North Carolina home, according to authorities. WITN reported that Terrell L. Johnson, 38, was shot after entering an Elizabeth City home through the back door at about 6:30 a.m. Friday. Officials said the homeowner confronted Johnson, and Johnson ended up being shot twice. Johnson then drove himself to the hospital, according to WITN. There's no word on the suspect's current condition or any charges. The case remains an active investigation. Johnson registered as a sex offender after a 2008 conviction of second-degree sex offense in Pasquotank County. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. He was released from prison in August of 2017. Well, there's your problem right there. But that got solved by the individual in that home. Good for them. I'm glad they didn't suffer what that piece of filth no doubt had planned. This is another one from myfox8.com from February 4th, 2019. Video shows Ashboro man holding burglary suspects at gunpoint outside of home. And I am not, no, I'm not going to show the video. Just let's theater of the mind here, right? Ashboro, North Carolina. What is it with North Carolina? Home intruders got an unexpected surprise after breaking into an Ashboro home. The suspects were met with a gun drawn once they exited the home. Stephen Routh watches over his parents' home on McKnight Street, and after getting a call about some unusual people on the property, he made his way to see what was going on. Once he arrived, he saw 3 suspects trying to leave out the back door. That's when he held them at gunpoint and ordered them onto the ground while talking with 911 dispatchers. I had the gun, and they were coming out, and as soon as they saw the big gun pointed at them, their hands went up, said Ralph. Cell phone video captured the intense moments. Ashboro police responded to the burglary Sunday afternoon on McKnight Street. Before the suspects encountered Ralph, they ransacked the inside of the home, leaving glass shattered everywhere. It's a terrible mess. All the drawers are askew, cabinet drawers have been opened, stuff thrown out, papers everywhere, said Ralph as he showed the damages inside the house. The suspects did not take anything of value before they tried to escape, leaving Ralph confused over what the suspects were after. They know this is not their home. They know they had no business in here, and they mentioned they just thought they would go in there and look around. Ralph said that the situation could have turned out worse, but hopes the criminals learn an important lesson from this incident. There have been too many instances lately of home invasions, and these like this, where they get caught. And some people have been shot and killed, especially those home invasions. People are not taking this mess anymore, said Ralph. Ashboro police are actively investigating this case. And last but absolutely not least, home invasion investigated near Droop Mountain by Douglas Fritz from WVNSTV.com. Hillsboro, West Virginia. Deputies with the Pocahontas County Sheriff's Department are investigating an attempted robbery that happened during the early morning hours on Monday, February 4th, 2019. They were called to a home on Seneca Trail near Hillsboro, West Virginia at around 3:10 a.m. When investigators arrived, they found Jesse Blake, 34, of Marlinton, West Virginia, lying in the yard. He had been shot. Blake allegedly tried breaking 2 windows to get into the house. Deputies said that is when the 70-year-old woman who lived in the home shot him with a .22 Magnum rifle. Blake was taken to the hospital in Roanoke for treatment. The case is still under investigation. Chief Deputy David Walton said charges were expected to be filed against Mr. Blake. According to Chief Deputy Walton, this is the second incident like this in the county. The other incident involved an attempted break-in where the suspect was scared off by the homeowner. Well, guess what? I suspect there's not going to be a third because I think they probably got the guy. So there you have it. Law-abiding citizens use their Second Amendment rights to save, well, right here, at least 3 lives, right? Against those who would deprive them of it. You know, that's how it's supposed to work, despite the fact that the gun grabbers would tell you otherwise. So let's go ahead, start rolling up the sidewalks and turning out the lights. Again, as always, I'm very glad that you've chosen to spend some time listening to me tonight, and chosen to have this conversation with us. Let me go over to the panel. Squiblo, do you have anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Yeah, I need a big red button on the side of my phone that lets me unmute. Can you get me one of those?
No.
Oh, fine.
Hillary Clinton can get you a big red button.
Yeah, I bet. Thanks
Swalwell
for
wishes he had one.
thanks for the invite. Thanks for letting me have a constructive political conversation. I probably talk about politics too much. I'm really not that political of a person, even though I pay attention to stuff. It's just I thought it was a good conversation tonight on that, and I guess just as usual, appreciate the invite on Friday night.
Absolutely. Kingpin, any words of wisdom you want to share with us? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I always want to plug Budget Guns and Gears reviews. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And I don't think Budget would mind if you watched his videos on Gunstreamer or GunTube.org or YouTube or Gun Channels. Very cool that you watch here on YouTube, but I don't think he would mind at all if you watched on the other ones. But make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tune in next Friday to the Right of the People. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. As always, I'd like to start my closing statement by thanking all of you out there in the chat. I'm always humbled and amazed that you've decided to spend this time with me tonight. The show is what it is because of you. So I thank you very much for being here. As always, remember to keep your elected representatives and Congress critters feet to the fire. It doesn't matter if they have a D or an R or an I or an L or whatever behind their names, because we have to make sure that they know that they're under the microscope. Send them snail mail, email, phone call, telegraph, freaking heliograph, semaphore, carrier pigeon, smoke signals, whatever you have to do. Let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight.